I tell you all this because I think it illustrates a primary challenge as well as a profound opportunity that our community faces today. First, in essentially one generation, we went from a place where a young couple could do just fine without a college degree or some form of post-high school training to one where that is practically impossible. And second, with one college graduate, you can change a generations-long cycle. That's the power of education. Now for some sobering news. To date, we're losing the education war. Nationally, in the last 35 years, in inflation-adjusted dollars, we have doubled K-12 spending, more than tripled the number of teachers in our classes, and reduced the student-teacher ratio 43%. What have we got to show for it? Buckets. And guess what? We've got no one to blame but ourselves. SAT scores have been flat since the 1970s. High school graduation rates in the U.S. lag nearly every single OECD country. And that's for all kids. For minorities, it is much, much worse. The fact is today, the color of your skin and the zip code you live in are almost entirely determinative of the quality of education you're providing. So why does that matter, and especially now? Well, here's why. First and most important for me is the fact that my faith tells me that this situation is immoral, and allowing it to continue to exist is a sin. But if that doesn't work for you, then how about this? A college graduate will make over $1 million more than a high school graduate over their lifetime. From 1998 to 2008, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, 10.2 million jobs were created for college grads. You know how many it was for high school? 120,000. And for high school dropouts, well, they went down 600,000 jobs. 44% of high school dropouts are not in the workforce, and 15% more are unemployed. Those are staggering figures, and they have only gotten worse in today's economy. But these are national figures. Ours are much better, right? Well, actually, no. The fact that Texas was a lone shining star in the recent economic downturn is cold comfort as we face our longer-term challenges. We can certainly brag about recent economic performance, but we have real vulnerabilities. In a recent speech to the Texas legislature, Richard Fisher shared some sobering information. The Beacon Hill Institute's State Competitiveness Report gave us mixed reviews. On the positive side of the ledger, low tax burden, employment in high-tech industries, venture capital, IPOs, low unionization, unrestricted minimum wages, exports, foreign direct investment, and percent of population born abroad who come here to work. But on the negative side of the ledger, Texas was ranked at or near the bottom in almost every human capital measure. We are dead last in percentage of adults with high school diplomas. 37th in percent of population enrolled in degree-granting institutions. 35th in academic research and development. And 41st in science and engineering degrees awarded. That's right. The state that is the home to the energy capital of the world is 41st in the nation in creating scientists and engineers. Oh, and did I mention that education, which is 40% of state spending, is being discussed in the context of massive deficits? So with that bright and sunny prologue, let me tell you what my vision is for Houston 20 years from now. To be admired throughout the world as the first major city in the nation, to face its education challenges head-on, to fix the problem, and to vault itself from laggard to peerless. A city where every single child is offered a high-quality education to prepare them for the jobs of the 21st century. And that, my friends, will take leadership. Even if you believe this should be the priority, why would you possibly believe that this could become a reality? Well, I think Jim Collins' concept of the flywheel in his book Good to Great, is a great analogy for this. Picture a huge, heavy flywheel, he says. A massive metal disc mounted horizontally on an axle, about 30 feet in diameter, 2 feet thick, weighing 5,000 pounds. Your task is to get that flywheel rotating on the axle as fast and as long as possible. Pushing with great effort, you get the flywheel to inch forward, moving almost imperceptibly at first. Then it moves a bit faster. 1 revolution, 2 revolutions, 3 revolutions, 4, 5, 6, and then at some point, breakthrough. The momentum kicks in your favor, and its own heavy weight works for you. Someone later asked, what was the one big push that caused this thing to go so fast? Well, you couldn't possibly answer that question because it's nonsensical. It was all of the pushes together. That's where I see Houston right now. This very minute. If you don't know it, Houston today is the epicenter of education reform in our country. Of course, we have KIPP and Yes Prep and their founders Mike Feinberg and Chris Barbic. These two are proving that charter schools can provide sustained, high-quality education and can do so at scale. By 2014, they'll be sending more kids to college than HISD. And there's Yellowstone Academy, and Provision, a unique school for at-risk boys, and Small Steps, a faith-based preschool for underprivileged kids, and REAP at Rice University, the Rice Education and Entrepreneurship Program supported by both the Jones School and the Houston Endowment, and many more that I'm leaving out. Then there are the totally new educational models, like Cristo Rey, a Jesuit high school where 4 students share a full-time job between them and essentially pay for their own high-quality college prep education. They're practically brand new, driven by a visionary and energetic leader, Father Martinez, and they just raised $1.8 million at their first school gala, the largest in Houston this year. By the way to go, B. Dixon. Or Genesis Works, headed by its visionary founder, Jorge Alvarez. Genesis Works changes the life trajectory of underprivileged kids by enabling them to work in meaningful internships at companies during their senior year in high school, better preparing them for success in college and success in life. Many of you in this room employ these kids, as does El Paso, and I can tell you that it is us who are blessed by them and not the other way around. Genesis Works results are phenomenal. Or the House of Tiny Treasures provided by Search, where the children of the homeless of Houston are provided the education and counseling necessary to succeed in school. Here's what Bill Boyer said last week at the Search annual luncheon, quote, after spending time working with organizations whose missions are to end hunger, end homelessness, and educate our most at-risk children, the most important thing I've learned is that it all starts with educating our kids. 59% of the adults at the Search Learning Center have less than a 4th grade education. Another 37% are 4th to 7th grade level. That's 96% of the adults at Search's Adult Education Center with less than an 8th grade education. And there's Teach for America. TFA's been in Houston for 20 years, and with 500 core members, it is the largest concentration of core members of any city in America. And guess what? Half of them stay in Houston even after they complete their 2-year commitment to Teach for America. That means that hundreds of the nation's best and brightest college graduates are choosing Houston as a home. A larger impact in any given year than the largest company in the city. And TFA's new executive director, Terry Bruner, has big, big expansion plans. And lest you think this is a charter school story, you know who the largest employer of Teach for America core members is? It's HISD. The largest in the city and the largest in the country. And their new leader, Terry Greer, is embracing this as a way to build human capital in the nation's 7th largest school district. 10 to 15% of new teacher hires in HISD each year are now TFA. This year, 27,000 students in HISD will be taught by 363 corps members. And our own James Calloway, along with many others, is working tirelessly to improve public education with the Apollo 20 program. These are but a few of the pushes on the flywheel. None of them by themselves offer the opportunity to achieve that vision I laid out a minute ago, but in combination, they can. In fact, they already are. And people around the country are noticing, adding another push. Education reformers and some of the world's largest philanthropists, people who have last names like Gates, want to be here in Houston, where education reform is real. The flywheel is moving, and in many ways it's rotating the right direction, but it's not rotating fast enough. And so we need lots more shoulders at the wheel, pushing and pushing and pushing until we have that breakthrough. When the momentum of the wheel takes over, and when the kid not graduating from high school and not going to college or community college is the exception and not the rule. Finally, I've left out one of the pushes. In fact, I've left out the most important push. This is Texas. And this is Houston. Come on, you all know it. We don't have to be bashful. This is the most welcoming, most compassionate city in America. It's a city with the greatest of pioneering legacies. We all in this room stand on the shoulders of the Smiths and the Allens and the Browns and of Jesse Jones and the Cullens and the Loves and so many countless others that came to this city, made it their home, made their fortunes here, and then reinvested their time and their treasures back into Houston so that we can enjoy the city that we know today. And it's not just individuals. I can't think of anything more consistent with the goal of a company to maximize long-term value to their shareholders than making investments that lead to greater and greater human capital in Houston. That's the single largest determinant of success in a knowledge-based economy. Many, many companies are already heavily invested in quality education, but more is needed, especially now. And that brings me to the topic of citizenship. Citizenship originated in its popular notion in Greece, where it wasn't seen as a public matter. Separated from the private life of an individual, citizens saw obligations to community as an opportunity to be virtuous, and it was a source of honor and respect. Aristotle famously said that, quote, "To take no part in the running of the community's affairs is to be either a beast or a god." And I believe this is where Houstonians have it all licked. We get that more than any other city. Richard Fisher, the president of the Federal Reserve Bank of Dallas, used a quote recently that I think captures my feeling about the odds of us achieving that vision I laid out a few minutes ago. To be admired throughout the world as the first major city in the nation to face its educational challenges head on, to fix the problem, and to vault itself from laggard to peerless, a city where every single child is offered a high-quality education to prepare themselves for the jobs of the 21st century. The quote Richard used is from T.R. Fehrenbach's History of Texas-styled Lone Star. Fehrenbach distills the Texas spirit, for which you can substitute the Houston spirit, into one simple sentence. Men who exist get overrun by men who act. So what's it going to be? Are you going to exist, or are you going to act? Thank you very much.